And a 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome everybody to the Life Point Table Talk podcast. We are continuing today with our Bible reading reflection. My name is Jason, and today I am joined by Pastor Jeff.
Hey everybody. Hi Jason.
All right. Hi Jeff.
Hey there.
Brother Jeff.
What do you know?
And
Real deal.
Awesome. We are on week 14, and we are cruising through. We are in Judges, and we're going to get into through Judges into Ruth, and we are also in Luke, Luke 9 through 11 as well there. So quite a bit to cover today. Some awesome stuff. So let's jump into it, shall we? Okay, we're going to start here with Judges 8. So last time we were talking about Gideon. We're continuing with his story. Let's see. Gideon has just defeated the Midianites. And that's where we're starting off in Judges 8 here. There's so many details in these stories. Sometimes it's hard to tell why they're even there.
Yeah.
It starts off, I don't know, they needed, Ephraim wants to get in a fight with them because he didn't include them in the war, and he calms them down, and it's weird. I'm not quite sure why that story's there, but they got to capture the leaders of Midian, so he points it out, and they're excited about that.
Yeah, they truce at the end there.
Yeah, it worked. That one works out.
I think we don't understand part of it, just the tribal living.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
don't
That's what
have-
I'm saying. Like, to even understand, why are they so mad?
Yeah, it's not just one or two people offended. It's a whole group.
No, they were ready to, like, kill.
Their civil war was going to start.
Because they didn't get to go to war with him. It was an offense.
Yeah, it was an offense.
So he...
it's almost too like, who do you think you are?
Yeah, you go to war without me.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
I will kill you.
But that sounds like the Last Kingdom, though, don't it? It
Yeah.
sounds like that type of deal.
Yeah, and
show.
he's able to work through it with them, which is good. Good for them.
Yeah.
And they captured some of the leaders, but Gideon's still pursuing these Midian kings.
He rejects the crown later on. They tried to make him king
Yes.
down there at the end of chapter 8. Which
Yes.
is interesting. That's why we had these judges to begin with. Something I learned, I did a series on this many years ago, but the word judge in Hebrew can mean champion, defender, chieftain, but not king.
Yeah.
Judge isn't really the best word, I think, for it, because you have Deborah and you have different ones
Yeah.
who are real quick. They're just mentioned in a few verses.
Yeah.
And they all, in some way or another, defended or fought for Israel. And the whole point is, too, that the Lord would raise them up.
Right.
And it seems like, in a way, the Lord was king.
Yeah. It also seems like...
They could have kept going that way if they could have worked it out.
But they weren't super unified,
No.
which is hard to tell
It's hard
in
by the
some of these
Spirit.
stories. Like all
Yeah.
this stuff with not everybody's involved.
Mm-mm.
Which we were just actually talking about. This other clan gets mad because they weren't involved. So it's kind of a chaotic time.
But he did, it's funny, he took earrings from everybody
Yeah.
instead of, I won't be your king, but how about this? Give me some gold. So he takes a payment.
And Judges
for what he did.
is really I feel like the tone in writing up till now, when we get to this book, kind of shifts. It's much grittier,
It is
a lot
grittier.
more details. I'm sure there was a lot of crazy stuff in the other books that they just didn't describe it
Right.
this way. There's a scene here at the end of chapter 8 too, where Gideon tries to get his son to kill these kings that they've captured.
Yeah,
And he's a
couldn't
little
do it.
kid. He won't
Yeah,
do
he
it.
can't do it.
It's really these kind of like details, lots of like really intense details in there. And so, like you said, Gideon takes these takes their gold from their earrings, and I love his story. His story's so awesome. And then he takes this gold and makes a statue.
Yeah.
It makes an idol, an ephod, a garment, which is a whole interesting, like sacred, sacred garments that they had.
Yeah, and that was kind of like if you walked into one of these castles and they've got armor on the wall, swords and display. It's kind of what he was doing. It wasn't necessarily something to be worshipped, but guess what?
They
couldn't help it.
Yeah.
Something about our eye. We act like, how could they do that? But man, it's so easy. It just means what you got your eyes on.
Yeah.
It's not, we can worship so much, and, TV, whatever it might be, Facebook. It's just how much you give your time to something. Not that all that stuff's evil. And like this stuff on the wall that Gideon had made, eventually they turned it into something to worship. And it's usually after the leader goes. And you can feel that he was going on.
Yeah, it says that
it was kind of like after the fact.
They had peace for 40 years with him.
Yeah. Good story. It also says he lived to a good old age. It doesn't say that God condemned it, necessarily what he had done. It's just the fact that they had to watch making anything that resembled an idol. That was just a real problem back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Physical idols, totem poles, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, for thousands of years, it was just so embedded in culture. Then Gideon's story ends, and we go from there.
And so I said they have peace 40 years, then he dies. Soon after, they go back to worshiping Baal and have no loyalty to Gideon's family either. And then we get into chapter 9. Gideon, this is a whole crazy story, lots of details. Gideon has a son by a concubine from the city of Shechem. And this guy goes and murders all of his brothers.
Yeah, he was setting himself up for king.
Yeah, the citizens of I'm probably saying that wrong, Shechem.
Which you can see they
try to make him king.
Though Gideon refused it, they saw him that way anyway.
Yeah.
That was part of the problem.
And one of but this guy was like because it was a concubine, there's some weird stuff there that he wasn't totally accepted in the family. And one of Gideon's sons, Jotham, lives, and he calls these people out and basically puts a curse on them.
Yeah.
And then he runs away. And that plays in later in the story.
It's like, good luck with this guy.
Yeah. if it was of God, good for you. But if it's not, this is going to go really bad.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And you would think somebody who murders their own family
might probably
not be
start.
the best start to a kingdom.
Let's see.
Yeah, Jotham.
So we get into
Abimelech. I mean, it's a long story. We don't have to go into the whole
long
thing because Samson's coming up. That's the one to get into.
And then,
but he ends up cursed. And it looks like he's doing good.
Yeah.
When the lady in the tower.
Yeah, it goes through a whole.
It goes through this long thing to make, and it's almost like, oh, he's going to be okay, though he was cursed, and it can't be right. And finally, you see, oh, he is cursed.
It's crazy because he actually wins.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like battle after battle.
He's really doing
in this
well.
Long story, he's killing he's winning. And there at the end, he's captured the whole town except for this one tower. And again, these details.
A lady throws.
It's like no other book really. This lady throws a rock on his head.
She throws a boulder over.
And not only takes him out, but so much so that it doesn't kill him, but he's so embarrassed.
He's so embarrassed by it
that he has his hand kill him. His servant there kill him.
Because he said he does not want it to be known that he was killed by a woman.
Now it's known forever.
Now it's what do you call that? He wasn't the women's rights. I mean,
Yeah,
he was. I mean, that wasn't there. That equality.
Yes, he was. He was embarrassed by it, and so it came true. That's basically the long story.
And that shows you that is a curse.
Yep.
You can get right up. I mean,
After victory,
victory.
Yeah.
Now you're getting ready to relax, have this kingdom, and bam.
And the very thing he's embarrassed about,
That's
now
cursed.
he is remembered forever. He got killed by a lady
He got killed.
throwing a rock on his head.
Yeah, how dumb is he?
All right.
And here he is in that situation. But he still was part of these warriors / defenders that were being raised up at this time.
And
Kind of like good outlaws. He really was the bad guy, good guy.
That's kind of what you
which
see.
is interesting because they
in this-
weren't some of them weren't the best of character.
Right.
But
And
God used them anyway.
Judges is
because they would
kind
get
of-
stuff done that the scaredy cat good people wouldn't
Yeah,
do.
exactly. It's like, it reminds me of like modern heroes.
Yeah, it reminded
They're
me of
all
like Clint
gray.
Eastwood coming
It's
in,
all
Pale Horse Rider.
mixture of, they're good, but they're kind of bad guys, kind of thing.
Yeah, like that one movie, A Pale Horse Rider, that Clint Eastwood did. He kind of, he's a bad guy, but kind of has a good heart for the town.
Almost all these stories are like that.
He had been in
They're
jail,
all
murderer.
these
Yeah.
like mixed up characters who kind of do their, it's crazy. So let's keep going. Chapter 10, Abimelech dies. He has a grandson. I just like this. Tola, grandson of Dodo.
Yep, Tola of Dodo.
Awesome. He's judged for 23 years. Jair is judged for 22 years. And the pattern is basically, after these guys die, their leaders die, Israel worships other gods and stop worshiping Jehovah. And
Yeah, it's a cycle.
It's a
In the
cycle over and
commentary
over.
I was reading,
and they
showed
become
how
oppressed.
God save us, and He does, and
Yep.
then they slowly get back into idolatry, and then they repent. God save us. It's kind of like make a deal.
Yep. And so they go through that. There's this cycle here. Again, they cry out to God. They're oppressed by the Amorites and Philistines for 18 years. They cry out to God. They start serving God again, and they're asking, who's going to lead us? Then we get into chapter 11, and this is the story of
Jephthah.
Jephthah? Is that how you say it?
The ta on my name.
Is that where it came from?
Jephthah.
Jephthah, son of Gilead, by a prostitute. His brothers have pushed him out. It's again the situation where
And we see this today.
patriarch has
Rightful heirs
has
and
gotten
this and
with someone not in the family, and he's an outcast, and he lives in Tob. And this is like exactly what we're talking about. This guy has joined some kind of gang,
mercenaries,
and he's
but
doing
they're
raids.
bad guys, yeah.
Yeah, it says useless fellows or something.
Lawless
like that.
men.
Yeah.
says.
So he's in some kind of gang, basically.
Yeah.
This guy, and so they've come back to God, and they're saying, who's gonna fight for us? And they go and ask Mr. Jephthah to be their leader.
That's what I'm called, the mercenaries too, which is kind of like that in some of the films you see today, especially in the 80s. Predator and those where they would hire
mercenaries. Yeah.
Columbia
Gun
would
for
hire
hire.
the mercenaries,
He's
and
a
they
gun
would go
for
down.
hire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
guns for hire is the way too.
And
Yeah.
so it's interesting. They're gonna battle the Amorites. It goes through this whole thing. They're mad because they think Israel took their land, and actually the whole story is there. And Jephthah tells it to them. They got their land when they were coming out of Egypt. They were passing through, and they wouldn't let them pass through. All they wanted to do was pass through, and so they ended up getting in a war over it. They went to war with them, and that's how they ended up taking it. Such a strange story. This is a hard one for me. He makes this promise to God that if he wins, when he comes home,
it's a tough story. Isn't it?
whoever comes out of the gate, or whatever comes out of the gate, he will sacrifice. What a weird
It's a certain vow. I mean,
vow to make.
I would give an offering to whoever,
and
to
it
whomever
happens to
I
be
see next.
his
Happens to be
daughter.
his and
Comes
she,
out dancing, celebrating that he's won.
and she accepts it, and then they go through this whole ceremony.
It's insane.
But I mean, we see that. I mean, even after Christ, during those times, and AD times, even up recently in different areas, you still see this type of human sacrifice.
Yeah.
Even if it's I will ride out into the desert till I die, or the old classic Joe versus the volcano type stuff. We must throw the innocent one into the volcano to appease the gods. What it does show you, a big part of this is our conscience from the start, the effect of the fall on man's conscience. We know something has gone wrong. And there's always this constant feeling, if we can just get this off us, things would go better. I don't know how evolution in and of itself would explain it. You know, it seems like, and we still have it to this day.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it out. But really, where we missed it, you know, in the sacrifices, God used his as an example, the animal sacrifice of what was coming, these sacrifices. Then the cults and the other religions, they all just got off, and to where it became human.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't even think he meant...
Which you could understand.
This story, it was like an accident.
Oh, you could tell.
And it's so weird.
He's so
What's
broken,
amazing
but he
is
keeps it.
He keeps it, and she does.
Yeah, she accepts it like it becomes an honor.
Yeah, like, okay, we got to do this thing.
Yes, it's an honor. But if you really look and read and follow, even in the times of the Vikings and things like this, it's just was part of it.
Yeah.
Because they really believed.
Yeah.
They really believed in the gods. They really believed in the sacrifices. They really believed in the results.
Right. It was his promise
Blessed
to God.
or cursed. Yeah, they believed in these things.
Yeah.
We just think we've gotten beyond that.
Right.
We can explain everything in a scientific manner, but it can't be.
Yeah.
There are things beyond us. You just need to have the right truth of what is there. And how to relate to it. But it's a heartbreaker, though.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
But you can see it's not something that I think is exaggerated. Because even outside of the Bible, you hear stories like this.
Yeah.
With these kind of sacrifices. But it is kind of, it breaks your heart. It's like a movie.
No, this Judges, the whole thing is so cinematic.
Yeah.
All of it is these kind of tragic situations.
The other day I was watching something, and it was like, and then they got killed.
Yep, it's one of
right
those.
at the last
He
second,
went,
they
won.
made it. They made it, and then they get hit with an arrow.
Over and over. This kind of
they
thing.
made it. Everything's going to be okay, and boom.
It's Greek tragedy kind of
It
thing.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, so we keep going here. Jephthah leads for 6 years. Then we have Isbin leads for 7 years. Then Elon for 10 years. Different leaders. It's a cycle there, about 10 to 20 years or so. They do good, and then things go bad. Israel sins against God. Again, they're handed over to the Philistines.
Abdon, you mentioned Ab. He's in there. Anyways, keep going. Yeah.
So we keep going.
Then you come to Samson.
Yes. So Samson is interesting. Angel shows up. This was like a whole prophetic deal. And prophesies or tells her he's supposed to be raised as a Nazirite. And it's almost like a miracle she even has the child. It is. She couldn't have children.
And again, it's like Mary.
Yeah, it's a foreshadowing of
not Mary,
Christ. Elizabeth?
Elizabeth,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And the angel shows up, and pretty
and
cool.
Sarah. I mean, it's similar.
Yeah. And so, 14, we start Samson. And his story,
13.
13's the end there with the angel.
Yeah, the angel, the prophecy.
Yep.
And it comes to pass, and he goes up in the fire.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. If I was an angel.
He turned on the afterburners.
Yeah.
Took off.
He just ascended in the flame.
Flame.
He jumped into the fire and went up with it.
That. Yeah.
Talk about, whoa.
Yeah. And so,
maybe he wasn't just a regular guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, 14, we get into Samson. Starts off right away. He wants a Philistine wife right from the start. And he's on the way with his father and mother to get this wife, and he encounters a lion. He tears it apart with his bare hands.
And it lets you know each time, because the Lord came upon him, the Spirit of the Lord.
Yeah.
So this really was a supernatural on top of the natural inspiration. Kind of like the madman of Gadara.
Opposite.
Had the wrong spirits.
Yeah.
And did...
But had superpowers.
Yeah. This is the good one.
Interesting. And so he gets the woman on the way back home to marry her. He sees the lion he has killed, and there's a swarm of bees in it, and he goes and scoops some honey out to eat, and he also gives some to his parents, but he doesn't tell them where it came from.
Yeah, that's a good tidbit that he doesn't tell.
Yeah.
Because I've heard different like illustrations for lessons from Samson's life.
Mm-hmm.
He continues to compromise little by little.
Mm.
And all of them eventually, I mean, he had time to change.
Yeah.
Several years, really. But he just keeps making these little compromises. And the Lord was gracious and merciful and stayed with him, until eventually, though, as we'll see,
Yeah.
all of the little steps. But it started here because he wasn't supposed to interact with a corpse or a dead body.
Even like I said, right away there.
And he had to go through a ritual
Yeah. Yeah, right.
after touching a dead body.
Yeah.
And he's like, he didn't want to mess with all that. So he just doesn't tell his parents that, hey, I came into contact with a dead animal's body. And so because of that, that was just like the beginning of the end.
Yeah. And it goes through this whole thing. He does this riddle about it, about the lion. It's really wild.
Like,
this whole big
who would know?
thing. Yeah, it's really strange. Out of the eater comes something to eat. Out of the strong
one
there came something
sweet.
And they want his wife to tell him.
It's very Game
give
of Thrones, this Judges.
Yeah. And this is also the compromise with him. It starts from the start.
I don't see why he put up with so much obvious deception. It's like he thought he had to have seen it. I think he did. He just put up with it because he thought nothing. Like, it can't hurt me.
Yeah. Well, it starts right here when
I can fraternize with the enemy, and
they
it not
want
hurt
the
me.
answer to this riddle, and they get her to do it.
Yeah.
And she cries to him, "You don't love me."
Yeah, the nagging.
All this stuff. And he had promised them 30 robes. It's a funny story.
And kills
And he goes and kills these
30
Philistines
people.
to get their robes for this. It's another one of these, like, I will keep my word. Insane.
Yeah.
He makes this offhand riddle at a party and ends up killing all these people. I don't know. That's wild.
That's part of it. I think it's today, like, there's different things here. I think we're just so used to not keeping our word.
Like how I didn't mean it.
But in that time, I mean, that's why I think the Native Americans here were blown away. The number of times that
They didn't
the
keep
government's word, like, what in the world?
But it also sets off a war.
It does.
All of these situations set off these they're like keeping it real to the death, no matter what. And we see it. That comes back on. The Philistines are mad. He went and killed these guys.
Yeah. So they give her to his best man.
Yes. Okay. 15. We'll keep it.
15.
He reconciles with his wife. He goes and reconciles this famous one. He ties 300 foxes together and lights them on fire and sets
It wasn't his wife. It was his wife. He never got her.
No, that's right. And he's mad about it, right?
He never gets her.
He tries to reconcile.
They go ahead and marry him to his best man.
Yeah.
So he comes and he goes through this whole deal. So they say, you can have the other sister.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he burns down the field with the foxes.
Mm-hmm.
And
It doesn't sound like he takes the deal. It leaves it open. Like, he just gets
and they
mad.
go, and the Philistines get mad and go and kill Samson's first wife and father over it because that's how it started. The Philistines invade Judah, and they go to get Samson for what he did, the killing the 30 guys for their clothes. Let's see. Let's see. On the way in to get him, they're tying him up. Samson breaks free and takes a donkey jawbone, kills 1,000 men, This is like superhero status here. Another interesting, Samson's dying of thirst there after he kills all those guys, and there's a miracle of water coming out of a rock. We've seen that before. Samson is leader of Israel for 20 years, but the whole time I think Philistines were ruling over them.
Yes.
Let's see.
To a degree.
Yeah, it was
It was still very tribal.
Yeah,
in
it
a
was all
sense.
kind of mixed up.
Yeah.
It wasn't super clear.
They might have been stronger, but the Israelite clans, they had a degree of autonomy
yeah.
because of Samson. But he keeps taking these steps.
And then we get to Samson falls in love with Delilah. So the Philistines immediately, it goes to them trying to work with her to find out what his where his strength comes from. So she starts nagging him. We go through several different situations where she tries to get it. He tells her something not true. Tie me up with strings.
Yep, he does go through the
She
different
does
ones.
it.
But each
He
one
breaks
gets
free.
closer and closer.
Yeah.
Then he's like, braid my hair.
Rope. Yeah, that
now
was
he's close because it's cut hair.
Yeah, he's
so
right
notice
there.
if you compromise in the little, it starts adding up, and then you start getting closer
Yep.
and closer to the big thing that can ruin your life, take your whole life out.
Yep. And he's right there. That's the next one after the braids. He finally tells her it's his hair. She cuts his hair and ties him up. His strength is now gone. He thinks he's going to break free, too.
He does.
He's not even realizing what's happened.
It says he does not realize that it's not
God
there.
has left the building. God has stopped helping him, it says. They take him to prison. They chain him up. They poke his eyes out. And they make him work turning a millstone. And the Philistines throw a huge party. They're celebrating. This is in their temple. They're praising Dagon, their god, for capturing Samson. And as they're celebrating, they bring Samson out to laugh at him. And he has the guy who's helping him, because he can't see, stand him by the pillars. And Samson prays and says, if you'll give me one more time of strength to take revenge. And it says he shouts
And he does
out,
so.
let me die with the Philistines. Fascinating there. Pushes them down and kills everybody there. 3,000 people. Says he killed more in that one situation than when he was alive.
He had led Israel for 20 years.
Yeah.
Seems like Judges should end there,
Keeps going.
but it keeps rolling.
Now we get into Micah from the hill country of Ephraim. This is another kind of interesting story. He takes silver from his mom. There's a whole deal there, and eventually he makes a shrine for a god in priestly clothes. It keeps mentioning, too, there's no kings yet. Over and over through Judges. It keeps saying that.
And everybody really, there wasn't an order.
Yeah, this is kind of a
Everybody
chaotic
just did what they
time.
wanted.
Yeah.
That's where things kept getting off track.
Yeah. And so a Levite man is traveling through Micah's town, or whatever, his village, and this Levite becomes, Micah asks him to become the priest for this idol and temple that he's set up. And so he does. It's a long story. The tribe of Dan, it's another tribe. So there's all these different situations going on. Dan doesn't have a home. They're looking for a home. They send warriors to find a home, and they come by Micah's town, and they end up talking the priest into leaving with them. They steal his priest and his idol. And so they leave, and they go... they take over another city, Laish. They kill everyone, burn it
Leash.
down, and build their own place. and the idol is set up there, and the Levite is the priest, and they worship the idol. The Levite's name is Jonathan. He's a direct descendant of Moses. And Jonathan's descendants serve as priests over the people of Dan until Israel is taken into captivity. Sometimes in Judges, it seems like it's mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're talking about, like was he totally off? Were they were like mixing the idols, but he was also kind of a man of God who they're asking him to talk to God and stuff, and
this is
chaotic.
quite a while. Part of it's the intermingling. After time, their pure worship of God starts getting mixed with this and that.
Right.
And you don't see instant lightning. You don't see instant judgment at this time.
Yeah, it's like
But
compromise.
it does get off track
for generations to compromise. I mean,
we don't understand there's a big grace mercy deal in the Old Testament that we don't point out enough. We'll just take when it does happen and leave out the years and years and years that it hasn't.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah.
So they were getting off track. They were getting part of Sodom and Gomorrah too.
Yeah.
As it gets into 19.
Yep. 19. So
with the same type deal.
It's another really intense story. Levite.
It sounds just like Lot.
Has married a woman from Bethlehem, but she's unfaithful and goes to Bethlehem. He goes and gets her, and on the way back, he stays with old man in his house, so he's an older man, and the people from Gibeah, which is the town near there, come and surround the house, and they're banging on the door. They're trying to it says they can have sex with him, actually, the Levite. They're wanting to get to him. And again, this just like culturally, they're like, no, here, take my wife and my daughter instead of me. And eventually, the Levite throws his wife out to these men. They rape her, they abuse her, says all night long, and she passes out. She's basically dead. It says she's unresponsive. He takes her home. It's so graphic. He cuts her up and sends parts of her throughout all the land. Now, this is as a way of telling the other tribes of Israel this evil thing that had happened.
It's very graphic. But even outside the Bible, these type of reports are known in history. I know even in modern times in India, there's different parts. Just so many people, but there's a lot of people that live out of the cities too as well, kind of tribal in a way, or certain groups. And I saw a while back where a young girl had been raped in a certain city, but it wasn't the men of the city. It was from another place, and they had rose up and this town against this town. This is in modern times.
Yeah.
Or like, can you believe this could even happen? Yeah. It's similar to what's here.
Yeah, yeah.
How could something like this even happen?
Yeah.
And he was sending out a warning. Basically, he was calling them together.
Yeah.
To fight.
Yeah.
This is
outrageous thing, and also it's different. How would you do that back then? It's not like you had video
show how
or
serious
internet.
You were.
To this across this huge space.
Yeah, we're not making
people.
light of it in any way. I mean, it's as graphic as it can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's in the Bible, and it's showing reality of the times.
Well, it is too. He's doing this because it was so serious. To get the rest of Israel together to go take vengeance for justice of what happened. So it actually a whole war starts over this situation. All the people come together from Israel, and the Levite testifies as to what happened with the guys from the city of Gibeah, and they decide to go to war, to go get these guys. But they go to war, and I guess Gibeah, these guys are in. It's like a tribe within a tribe of some sort. They're somehow
They
under the
lose at
Benjamites.
first,
They're
yeah.
under the Benjamites, which must be a bigger.
It's that
larger-
intermingling.
A larger.
Yeah. So they end up
situation.
fighting their own.
Yes.
That's why it says civil war broke out.
Yeah, it's a whole civil
In your
war.
text, if you're reading, it'll talk about civil war. Yes, it is and it wasn't. They didn't mean it to be.
Yeah.
They were just going after those evil territories and towns,
Yeah.
which happened to be under Ben. And
Benjamin.
so, but they lose at first. And if you want to make it shorter, they do win eventually.
Yeah.
They eventually get him to come out all the way.
Yeah.
That's what was the problem. They were coming out, hitting him pretty good, then going
Yeah.
back in.
Yeah, and it goes through a whole thing where they fight, and eventually Israel wins, but they're sad about it because it is a type of civil war. It's their people where they've just killed all these
They
people.
won to the degree that they left the Benjamites, wasn't it? Yeah, the Benjamites. Not one of us will allow his daughter to marry a Benjamite.
Yeah.
So the people came to Bethel and sat there before God until evening, weeping loudly and controllably. They were very serious about keeping the family names alive within tribes, like even keeping the tribal name alive.
Yeah.
I was just so serious in that day. You have to understand your whole world really was your family.
Yeah.
You worked together, you ate together, you fought together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they had left them without. Oh boy, I don't want to go into it.
Yeah,
all.
it's so crazy.
It's so crazy because they go and they have them get women,
Yeah, it's a
virgins, the whole thing.
yeah. They take them from other places, and they set this workaround to get around their vow, not because they feel bad because they don't have anybody to marry,
Right.
and that's how it ends. That's how Judges ends.
Yeah.
Is them kind of trying to
Trying to
make
restore Benja-
peace after they just killed, almost killed off one of
Right.
their tribes. That's how it ends.
It just reminds me of Vikings, Last Kingdom, these different shows that there's not based on every part of it being true, but there is some history there.
Yeah.
And that type of lifestyle,
Yeah.
I mean, that really is part of it.
And it seems it's very cyclical. They get stuck.
It's organized chaos.
Yeah, it's the same thing over and over again. It seems
It's
like.
and it's a lot of it's too. It's justice in your own hand.
Mm-hmm. You kind of have
And
to
you can
react
see,
and respond. And yeah. Okay, we got to keep moving here. Ruth, I'm going to be quick here because I want to get into Luke. We start in Ruth.
Ruth is one of the shortest books of the Old Testament, and really, I think the heart of the story is how God uses a Gentile woman to be part of the story. You see the grace of God there, because she becomes the mother of Obed, who becomes the father of David.
Yep.
And that's how she ends up in the
and it
the
tells the
storyline.
story
And
of
there,
how-
and there's a commitment there too, how she wouldn't leave the covenant family.
No, yeah, it's awesome.
She was told you can go after her.
She says, "I'll die with you and be buried next to you." She won't leave.
Mm-hmm.
She sticks with them. And there's a whole story there about how she even became part of the family with Naomi and her.
Yeah, she had married
husband.
Naomi's son.
Yeah.
And when his son died, and her Naomi's husband died, all the boys died.
Yeah.
And Naomi's like, I'm going back to her original home.
Yeah.
And Naomi,
Ruth.
says, well,
I'm going with you.
here we go. And
Yeah.
Naomi's like, no.
Yep.
But she said, no, I'm going with you.
And it's a whole
That's
story.
that.
She eventually gets married to a guy named Boaz, who's
Sure does.
part of the family. And like you said, they have a son, Ruth and Boaz. His name is Obed. And he grows up and has a son named Jesse. And Jesse, of course, is the father of King David.
Obey, yes.
And
I left out the part there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It becomes
though.
part of the
genealogy
messianic
is
line.
amazing. And it is really cool that this person, not even...
If you wanted to
she's a
say,
Moabite,
if you
I
wanted to
believe.
say what's the point of the Old Testament, that's a big one right there.
And it's so crazy.
Literally
it's this little short story
tracing-
right there.
yes.
Yeah.
From Genesis, from Adam and Eve, tracing the actual
How it
line
happened, how it got there. Yeah.
of the King,
Yeah, it's awesome.
King of Kings.
Speaking of, let's jump over to Luke. Well,
Chapter 9,
Chapter
the sending
9.
of the 12 apostles,
Jesus calls.
which we've talked about this, how he can delegate authority because he was authority.
Yep. It starts off right there in 9. He's giving them power over demons and to cure all diseases. Sends them out to preach the kingdom and to heal. It's interesting.
Yeah, he tells them to.
They don't take anything with them.
Yeah, you'll be provided for.
Yeah. There's an interesting note there. It talks about Herod, how Herod wants to meet Jesus. He keeps hearing about him. It's really
They
interesting.
had a deal there. I don't think it's what we think. They didn't believe in reincarnation per se. They believed that the spirit of someone could come on another. Or just in general, how we talk today, like, man, he's the next Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
We would talk like that.
Yeah, because he says, I knew John.
Yeah.
Is he like a John?
Yeah, it's not like John's come back from the dead per se. I mean, that could be part of it. They were very supernatural-ish.
Could be, yeah.
Believe.
Right.
But some of it, a lot of it's like, who are they saying that I am? It's like that. Well, he's the next Michael Jordan. He's the next Elijah.
He's the next John the Baptist.
He's the next John the Baptist.
Yeah, because that's cool. Cool. I love these kind of details though. In Luke, that he provides some details there that each gospel has its own details. You know, the disciples return. They're excited. They return to go to Bethsaida. A big crowd follows them. Jesus is teaching them.
It means fisherman's town,
about
by the way.
Kingdom.
Peter was from there.
He's healing them.
James.
And this is where we run into the famous 5 loaves, 2 fishes.
Mm-hmm.
And he feeds them all, the 5,000 there. Let's see. Then we have Jesus. He's praying by himself. The disciples are with him. He asks them, "Who do the crowd say I am?" And
yes, that's what we're saying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some say Elijah, some say prophets of old. But Jesus says, "Who do you say I am?" Peter says, "The Christ."
Elijah was taken up. Remember, that's why he could come back.
Interesting.
He didn't die.
It could have been a literal
chariot of fire.
It could have. It wasn't just a type of Elijah.
Down. Yeah,
he literally showed up.
He came back.
Yeah,
it was dropped off in the chariot.
Yeah,
sounds a little sci-fi.
Yeah. He warns them not to tell. He predicts his death and resurrection again. He's telling them about how anyone wishes to follow me, he must deny himself, pick up his cross daily. Whoever wants to save his life must lose his life. There's a famous line there too at the end. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose himself or lose his soul? If you're ashamed of me here, I'll be ashamed of you there. I mean, these are all. I guess it is in the context of preaching to his disciples there, and it's interesting. He says, "Some standing with me won't taste death before they see the kingdom of God."
And then they do.
Yeah, most of them do.
They do.
Yeah.
Who he's talking to them about? That was part of it. Like people say, "What in the world?"
Yeah.
What is he talking about? And then 8 days, it says it's connecting now. About 8 days later, when he talked to them about this, they saw the glory.
Yeah.
And of course, that's where
Peter, John, and James go up the mountain with Jesus to pray. Jesus goes to pray, and his appearance is changed. His face transformed. The clothes become white and like lightning. What's really been when we're reading this time through is some of the translations. His appearance literally changed. His face changed. Like he looked like somebody else. Something
came out.
Some other person showed up.
I was just reading a near-death experience testimony. And of course, we believe in Christ without anybody's testimony. Mm-hmm. You don't need that. But I just thought it was interesting. They did see Jesus, but what they saw first was just this incredible, intense light that eventually came back down. And what came back down, it was like a person was there. And he says that light was him.
Yeah. Right.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just that he had light coming off of him.
Right. No, he was literally
He
something else.
is that light inside that body. glorified human body, but because it talks about when it describes God as light, and it's trying to describe who his inner being really is.
Yeah.
But it came out,
Yeah.
and
it's interesting too. I always
notice
thought,
it can be pulled back. That's amazing too.
Peter was. It says he doesn't know what he's talking about, that he was totally off. But in reading the context of just with the Old Testament, I always thought some of the translations say like tents or house
Shelters, but
what he was talking about is a sacred tent, the way the one they
memorial.
made for God, like a
Yeah,
tabernacle.
like a tabernacle.
Like these guys, like
for their presences
these were
to be
holy
there.
holy people. We have
Yeah.
to contain it,
Yeah.
so we can interact. We can't just
Yeah.
be like it made
This
a
is
lot more sense.
Kind
to
of
me.
too, like this is dangerous.
Yeah, totally. We need to cover you guys up.
This
You're like
is
radiating
dangerous.
there.
This is a holy
Yeah, it made a lot more sense to me. The sacred tent.
Yeah,
Like,
the Message translation, which I've been reading through this using, it's pretty good on it. He calls it memorials, kind of more than just a tent,
yeah. Well, I guess just when
more
we
than
were-
just to live.
we
But
were
it's
reading
a sacred.
through this.
What it does help reading both,
the
doesn't it? Old
tabernacle
Testament and the New.
There was this
Yeah.
total rule about holy sacred stuff shows up. You have to like be
Right.
really careful with it,
Right.
or it's gonna take you out. Like
Right.
we need to
For
make
real.
a tabernacle
For real. Yeah.
and a tent here, or you're gonna kill us with your
Yep.
radiation power.
And then it's the when you're at the top of your game, watch out. That's when the devil comes. That's what we got right here.
That's right.
He did. I've heard Brother Hagin say that. Here, the man, Jesus on the top of the mountain, man, the glory shows up, and then he comes down, and he's immediately confronted with a demonic test against him.
Yeah.
Well, you disciples can't make this happen. What's the deal? But he was ready for it.
Yeah. He heals the boy, and
He cast the spirit out, and
he
he's
says,
good because they couldn't do it.
"How long must I put up with you?"
That's
with
very
this
human, isn't
generation?
it? What's great about these types of things is I think we have this idea to live a perfect life and to not sin. It's like you can't even breathe. That
Yeah.
your lifestyle would be one of barely breathing,
Yeah, his
not even be
annoyance.
able to turn your head or not to be able to be
Like he
frustrated.
was above it all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he got tired. He got hungry. He snapped
Yeah,
a few times in a rebuke type of way.
yeah,
With the tree, he literally thought there was going to be fig Newtons. And I've read several commentaries that finally said, no, the tree was saying it had figs. No matter how, even if it wasn't the season, it was still saying. I know we're doing Mark 11. Well, it's in most of them too, the others. But anyways, what's good to know is Jesus was human,
yeah,
and he still was without sin,
yeah.
which is awesome. It's
Yeah.
okay to get frustrated.
It's and then the next
Righteous
thing,
anger, it's okay. It's okay.
It's also like super human too. These guys, superhuman, super.
Good.
Humanity on display with these disciples. The
Yes,
next
he was
scene,
upset with them.
they're arguing about who's going to be the greatest.
Yeah, then it goes right into them. They did it from start to finish, sounds like.
Yeah.
Until he actually was crucified or taken away in the garden.
They're fighting over that.
They were still fighting. It says they were up to the
Literally
very
till
last. Because again, we read Savior from sin into the Gospels, and they just were not seeing that. They were
Yeah.
not thinking that. It just was foreign.
It makes sense with the context.
Yeah,
It totally
and
makes
they
sense.
had the scriptures for it too. It's
Yeah.
not like they didn't have the scriptures for the kingdom.
Yeah.
But he still was teaching lessons to them. He took the child
Yep.
and said, "Here's kingdom power."
The one who's least among us will be the greatest.
Right.
The disciples try to stop someone else from casting out demons. Jesus says, "Not against us, is for us."
That should help
pretty
us.
cool.
And just, man, if we could have more unity in the body of Christ right there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There you go.
Jesus is going to Jerusalem.
This is the Great Samaritan, right?
They
No,
won't
this
accept him. It's the opposite.
this is where they wanted to cast down fire.
Yeah, they want to cast down fire, and Jesus
the
rebukes
boys.
him. You don't know what
James-
kind of spirit you are.
James and John, which is interesting because Elijah did.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, they have context for
They have
for this stuff.
context for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's good to see that the heart of Jesus.
Then it goes through the
Nah.
end there. There's like 3 in a row talking about people wanting to follow Jesus. Jesus says this, foxes have holes, birds have nests, but I have no place to lay my head. Another asks him, but he wants to bury his father. Jesus says, allow the dead to bury the dead. And then it goes into another one, and he says, but first I want to say goodbye to my home. Jesus says, no one who puts their hand to the plow and looks back to things left behind is fit for the kingdom.
It's a series
3
right
in a
there
row.
that fit
Yeah.
for the kingdom.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. 10, we get into Jesus appoints 70 others, sends them out 2 by 2 to the places he's going to go.
72.
72?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mission of 72. After this,
Okay.
the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them on.
He's sending them out like lambs.
You know, there was a
among
high
wolves.
point in his ministry where it wasn't just the 12.
Yeah, I mean, right there, he's got a group
Yeah.
he's sending out.
Again, don't carry too much.
Yep, they're traveling light. If they reject you, tell them the kingdom of God is near. Well, both ways. If they reject it,
Blessings and
there's going
curses
to be
are
judgment coming on them.
real.
Yeah, it talks.
That you can bless something, you can curse something.
It's several instances there too where it talks about judgment, but he puts it in a context of like cities who had been judged previously. Like if they saw what you guys got to see,
And
they would have
there's
been
a good
different.
there's a
It's really interesting.
mercy there too, because people think that just on the day of judgment everybody's getting the same thing, but according to Jesus, that's not true. I mean, you still want to go to heaven. I mean, if there's degrees to hell, and I believe there are, still, you don't want any degree.
Yeah.
You don't want any degree in that.
Right.
But he does say you're responsible for the level of influence that you've experienced,
Yeah. Like
for what you've heard,
what
what
you
you've
see.
seen,
Yeah.
type of deal. So he goes through Chorazin, Bethsaida.
Yeah. And so they come back. They're really excited that these 72, that the demons are subject to them. Jesus, interesting, because they're talking about this, and he says, listen, I watched Satan fall like lightning
Yeah.
from heaven. But what you should really be excited about is your name is recorded in heaven, which is kind
Yeah.
of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, he's saying, because we can get excited about these things, and we should, but he's saying also don't forget they were excited about what they were doing for the Lord, and Lord switched it back to, be excited about what I'm doing for you, or what's happening for you, what's being done for you is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's cool too. We were talking about kind of the humanity of Jesus. It says he's overjoyed here. He's
Yeah.
rejoicing with them, and he's praising the Lord. And he
There's
says
many
you're
instances, yeah.
you're blessed to see. You're blessed because what you're seeing, many prophets and kings long to see. That's really interesting there.
Right. I mean, you have a good 4,000 years
Amazing.
of he's coming.
Yeah, he did.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jehovah.
Let's see here. Okay.
Good Samaritan comes next. Tells the story, which could have been true, and that he has not a Pharisee, but he has a Samaritan help a Jewish man, which is pretty amazing at that time because of the unrest that was part of that. That comes with the story.
Let's see here.
After what you told, then comes the Good Samaritan.
Okay.
It goes, then you have Jesus and Martha in Luke 10. Martha, Martha, Martha. And she was too busy. You were worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed. I like that.
Yeah.
Not 400 things are needed.
What? Yeah.
That's true. Many times in our lives we have to watch this and that. If I can do these 10 things, everything will be great. Everything will change for me. But Jesus just put it down to one thing. Just take the time, focus on my word first, and then get into these other things.
Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah.
That's what I like about Andrew Womack's ministry. He really puts an emphasis on the word will do it for you if you'll get into it.
Just stick with it. Yeah.
Because it grows like a seed. It grows the tree. It'll grow. It'll do it for you, not you doing it. It's what I was talking about the other day in the meeting, trying to emphasize theirs by grace through faith versus by law through works. The word will do the work for you. And it would have helped her with the anxiety and the pressure and the worry that she was under. Put the word first, as we've heard it said.
All right. We get into 11. They're asking Jesus how to pray. He goes through the Lord's Prayer there with them.
Father, may your name be honored. May your kingdom come.
And it's interesting. Right after that, he gets into the parable of persistence. About a person asking to borrow something from a friend, waking him up in the night, keeps knocking on his door, he'll eventually give it, and he's, keep on asking, and it'll be keep on asking and keep on asking, seek and keep on seeking, and you'll find, knock and keep on knocking, and the door will be open. Really awesome.
And it kind of ends with the Beelzebub.
Yeah,
he gets accused of working darkness to get rid of darkness.
Yes.
By the power of Beelzebub, the ruler of demons, he cast out demons.
Yeah.
And then they began also to tell him they did this quite a bit, give us a sign.
Yeah.
The miracles weren't enough.
Yeah. Is that where he compares himself to Jonah?
Every kingdom divided against itself is destroyed. So if Satan destroys Satan, and he talks about that. Basically, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not in league with Beelzebub.
Yeah.
What's happening in my life is not because of that.
Yeah.
And then he does talk about the finger of God is casting in that, which is awesome. Just like a little flick of the finger. It's not equal power. Satan he's just a rebel. He doesn't have this great origin deal of being equal with God. It's not two competing. He's going to be chained one day. One angel, as far as I know, is going to take him down. It's just legal loopholes at the moment that he. Yeah. But then I think a big point here too. He goes into, because they were talking about demonic things. The best way how to not be demonic is to be filled with the things of God. Because he tells the one about an evil spirit leaves somebody. Yeah. And it comes back. Yeah. And it's cleaned up, but it's empty. And I think the principle is, to get filled up, there's no room for anything else. Yeah. Then the sign of Jonah is what you were talking about.
Yep. And the 3 days, it's interesting there. Preaching repentance. Again, he's judging them by Nineveh, by what Nineveh did, which is interesting.
That's why when you get to
they repented just by this guy.
And you get to the book of Acts, and Paul's saying how God actually was showing mercy throughout ancient times. With all this, worship of the gods and things like that. And then Paul's saying, but now...
You know better.
Yeah. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
We're not as superstitious as that.
Interesting. And it ends here, this chapter 11. He's having lunch with the Pharisees, and he's sitting down.
And they get mad at him.
They get mad. He didn't do the ceremonial.
He didn't do the
wash
ritual.
His hands.
There's more to it.
I know there was.
They did,
there was literally a ritual he was supposed to go through.
They had to go through this whole ceremony thing, and Jesus he totally bypassed it.
And he goes on a rant. Yeah. He goes off on these guys about it.
Yeah, he does. Because it was really messing with everybody's life.
And he goes off so much, though, these other people are there, the lawyers. They're like, you're insulting us, too. Right. You're saying. He's making everybody mad.
Right. He came against the
whole
system.
Really? And then he goes on them. He goes against them.
To where they end with plotting against the killing.
Yep.
That's how. At a dinner.
Yep.
He gets people so upset at a dinner that they come together right then and there and start plotting against him.
He's been invited to this dinner. He just goes in and sits down, looks like he's going to have dinner, and turns into this whole big crazy thing.
Turns into a whole... And we've all been...
It says there...
where dinner doesn't go too well.
Dinner gone...
ends in a fight or something like that.
Yeah. It ends here. They're interrogating him on everything. and plotting to catch him in something.
Yeah.
They're
Shows you.
really
Because they
mad.
thought he's saying some stuff here. We got him.
Yeah.
We got him now. He's just off.
Yeah.
You can't just start
Well, I
coming
think he
again.
had them. He had their number.
He did.
And so they freaked out and were trying to get him in something, and they couldn't. And
They never could.
anyways, that's where we're ending here.
Fantastic.
So much goodness.
Love it that we're doing this.
Awesome stuff.
Absolutely love it.
Thank you for tuning in today,
Thank you,
guys,
guys.
and listening.
Thank you.
We'll be coming next week. We will be on week 15. So subscribe and share and keep tuning in, everybody. Have a great week.
See y'all.